Hey, you guys hear me? What's up? Welcome to another Project Feline live stream. Today's gonna be fun. I've got something cool planned. Let me just put my phone down. So I was trying to make tea, right? And then I guess my brain didn't know whether I wanted tea or coffee because I ended up putting a tea and coffee bag into the same mug. And I didn't realize until it was too late. But I was like, well, so I'm just made myself some miso soup instead because yeah, I couldn't pick between tea and coffee. So that's what I'm doing. How are we all? Hey, Bergman, good to see you. Mindcube, my man, good to see you. How's everybody? Sorry, I think excuse me. I totally forgot because apparently I had done a thing where I had last week I streamed twice in one day. And I think I didn't change my schedule. So for those that were thinking we'd get a stream this morning, I'm sorry. I went back to the old school schedule. Anyway, so what am I going to be doing this time? Well, we're going to be hopping back into Unreal and we're going to be creating a persistent mission system. That's right. So I'm going to get my screen up wherever it is. Is that it? Is that my screen? Cool. I think that's my screen. So we're gonna be basically, because I'll try and explain how this works. Because in the game at the moment, if we hop in, and if we go to one of these levels, you might notice something. So if we open up like interchange, I think this is the best example probably. Because when you click on interchange, it'll come up with a button menu. And it's like, do you want to play the collectathon mode? Do you want to play the time trial mode? Or do you want to do the free roam mode? And if we click on any one of these, it'll load us into the map with a game mode active. And then if we went back and clicked on one of those other buttons, like this one, it'll like spawn us in a different place. It's the exact same map, but it has like a different objective and different content in it. But the overall geometry is the exact same. Problem is, in the game, with the way it's going at the moment, I want to be able to go into this environment. So let's say I open up the free roam map. So I want to be able to just roam around in the environment and then pick up sort of missions as I go. The problem is, with the way I've done it right now, in order to activate a mission like that, you have to reload the whole level. So there'd be a loading screen, you'd enter the mission, then you'd have to load in to one of these other instances of like what's essentially the same level, just with slightly different objectives. And that to me seems bad because it's like, I don't know, it feels like it breaks up the flow too much. And most of the stuff it's loading in again is just kind of superfluous anyway. Like if I did it from the console here, now luckily it doesn't take too long to load yet because there's like no meshes in this level. But if I like typed travel interchange blockout 02, so you see it would take a split second there to load in, and if I go block 1, it loads in it again, but with like the mission active. So that it just kind of bothers me because it's like most of the stuff it's loading in again is the same. It's just that one gameplay layer that it's loading in again. So I figured what might be good is to just have the entire thing be persistent so that you can enter objectives while not having to reload the entire map, because that just seems kind of like the sensible thing to do. So yeah. Tea and coffee bag. No, I'm not okay. Yeah, I'm a bit tired. I've been editing the new devlog for the last like 6 days straight, and it's God, I'm so tired of it. I don't really enjoy making videos the way I used to because of just the scale of it all and the fact that the standard of quality keeps rising. So it's like each one's kind of taking longer and longer. So I figured, well, at least on stream I'll be able to do some work. That's nice. But yeah, the next devlog, I can't put a date on that yet. It's coming along. I've had to do like about 20 or 25 takes to get it right because I don't know. There's some days I just can't record, it just doesn't come to me. But some days it comes to me. So getting that right was most of the stuff, and now I've just been editing more. But anyway, that's, you guys will see that soon enough. So how am I going to tackle this problem of building a persistent game mode? Well, we're going to have to go and look at how I've done the game modes. And I might be a bit fuzzy on this because I coded all of this a year ago. So we're going to be taking code I wrote last year and ripping it apart and putting it back together in all sorts of ways. So the way that, let's see if I can explain it. The way that it works at the moment is that when you load into the game, every game mode, because Unreal Engine has this thing called a game mode asset, and this is awesome. I love it. I really wish Unity had something like this, but they don't, because Unity's cringe. So luckily Unreal has it. But it does have some limitations, because I think what this is meant to be used for, this game mode system, because again, Unreal was designed for Unreal Tournament. So it's kind of designed for multiplayer games where you load into a map and it's got capture the flag or team deathmatch. That's kind of what this is for. So you can tell a map to load in a certain game mode, or you could pass one in advance or something like that. I think that's how it works. But to change, the thing is you can't change the game mode while the game is, while the level is running, unless you reload the whole level. So that's not good. I don't want to do that. And I get that's just a kind of a limitation with the system. So the way I've built my game mode so far, and I remember like last year I went and revamped a lot of this stuff because the way I used to do it was terrible. But this way is a bit more, it makes more sense to me at least. So when you start a game, it'll do a few things. It will, I think I've written some of my own event dispatches and stuff. So it kind of will, it'll activate certain behaviors depending on what game mode you're running. So it'll run this dispatcher called game start event. And game start at the moment doesn't do much in this parent class. But the thing is, this game mode, you can actually make children of it. So all of the other game modes are based off this. So if I go and open up one of the game modes, for example, let's see, where have I put there we go. So if I open up the collectathon mode, you can see that this is a child of the game mode base, but it's got more specificity with what it does. So if we were to go into the game start event, you can see it's actually got something here. And you're like, wait a second, what's that? Because on this one, it's got nothing. But on this one, it says stopwatch start. So what that does is, because for this I think it's the collectathon mode, it runs a stopwatch in the background. And if I was to load up a map with the stopwatch on it, you'll see that on the top top left, you can see the stopwatch is running, counting the amount of seconds I'm in the map. So if I would unplug that, that would no longer happen. So if I go back to this map, you can see that it'll stay 0 for a bit, but then when it says go, the stopwatch doesn't activate. So the reason why I put this on child classes is because not every game mode has a stopwatch. Only certain particular ones have a stopwatch. So for the ones that do use the stopwatch, I tell it to start the stopwatch. And it basically is that kind of the way I think in that way, just with everything, more or less. And the way that this is controlled as well is that if you go and look here in the top left corner, you can see that there's the components themselves that it's referencing. So way back, like, might have been a year or two ago now, I wrote these components. So the way these work is these are like self-contained things. They're basically bits of code that exist completely independently of anything else. And if I open one of these up, like the stopwatch, you can see that this is the entire stopwatch code. There's no UI or anything. This isn't like the HUD. That's a completely different thing. But in terms of the data, the raw data itself, this is like fundamentally how the stopwatch works. So it does a few things here, like elapsed time, adding it, being able to actually have it count backwards and count forwards and all of that stuff, giving a starting value. And then you can tell it to do something if it reaches a certain value. Like if it's counting downwards and if it reaches 0, you can tell it to do something. Or if it's counting upwards and it reaches like 5 minutes, you can tell it to do something or whatever you want. So it's very flexible. And there's a bunch of other dispatches here for like when the stopwatch starts, what event should trigger. When the stopwatch stops, what event should trigger. When the stopwatch expires and reaches its time limit, what should happen. And it's just covering all use case scenarios basically. So again, this code isn't needed by every mission or every game mode. So that's why like certain game mode children will have them and some won't. And it's the same with a bunch of other stuff too. It's not just the stopwatch, it's also scoring, the fact that the game keeps track of how many collectibles you've picked up, all of that stuff. So those are all, each one of those behaviors is a self-contained piece of code that I can mix and match into different modes. And getting that up and running did take a while, but it paid off because I can make this very flexible. The problem is, I did this all using the game mode system. And it works fine for like linear games, but the kind of game I'm doing, I think it's reaching the limit of its use now. So I basically have to take everything I've written here and how this is used and recontextualize it to not use the game mode system, but perhaps like a persistent actor instead. So that's kind of how it works. I don't know if that made any sense, but I'm going to try and see if I can do something with this now. So what we might first start off with is making an actor. So I might make a new folder, or maybe, do I have a blueprints folder already? I don't think so. We might make a new folder in our Feline folder. And I might call, what should I call this? Missions? Yeah, I think missions. But maybe in the core folder, because I have a core folder, and what I use that for like very fundamental stuff. And then the stuff outside of core is all of like other add-on content basically. So for example, in the core folder, I've got the base character classes and everything, but then in the not core folder, I have like Gabby herself and all of the variants, but all of the stuff that I don't want other people touching is in core. So I think I should probably make something in core to tell this how it should work and see where we go. So the question now is, do I make a component or an actor for this stuff? Let me think about that for a moment. Because these are all the components in the core folder. You see I've got a few of them here. Because essentially what I need, well yeah, let's like write down some criteria, what this is gonna require. So we're gonna need to be able to, because we're basically making an actor, and this is like a quest or a mission or whatever you want to call it. We'll call it a quest because that sounds cool, I guess. Because that's essentially what all of these are. So we're making like a quest actor. And what does this need? It needs the ability to start quest. And it needs to end quest. And it needs to like have the quest parameters. And another little thing is that it needs some sequencing. And what this means, this is not really the same as parameters. So what I mean by quest parameters is that when you start a quest or a mission, you'll have objectives, like it'll be, you know, collect 10 items, and maybe there's a time limit for whatever reason. And that would be a parameter or an objective. And it kind of sets the bounds of what you need to do to win and what you will do and what will not help you finish this, like ways you can lose, ways you can win, that sort of stuff. Sequencing is more for, I guess, level specific things. Like let's say we wanted a door that would open, but it only worked in this quest for whatever reason. Or like there's some specific sequencing, like a dialogue event that happens. That would be sequencing. So that's something I'm not going to worry about yet, but it is something I need to factor in. But I'm kind of going to mainly focus on the stuff I have working already in the game that I just don't have in the right framework yet. So you need to be able to start it, end it. I guess maybe we should say finish, because there's a difference between a quest ending and a quest finishing, because maybe you die and the quest ends, but you don't win and you don't actually finish the quest. And then maybe you can actually complete it. So maybe it's good to distinguish those. So those are the main key events we need to worry about. I'm just thinking of how to build it, because I could put all of these in a component and call it like a quest component. Or I could make this an actor class, which kind of I can put into the world, which it would have to be an actor anyway. It's just whether or not to keep all of this in a component. Actually, yeah, probably, because every time I've tried to put something on an actor, I've always turned it into a component later on. So we might as well start with that. So I'm gonna create a blueprint. Where is it? Where's actor component? Is it in miscellaneous? Oh, I don't remember what it, because I've updated Unreal since we last looked at the game, so they might have moved a few things. Maybe, oh, here we go. So new blueprint class, actor component. We'll call this BP underscore mission component. We'll open it up and it's going to give us an empty thing. We might as well, while we're here, we might make an actor to put this on. So we'll create a, let's see, make a new folder here. We'll call this missions. And we'll call this blueprint class. We'll make this an actor, BP underscore mission. Maybe base or mission base. And then for the mission base, we will give it the actor mission component. And then the idea is we want to be able to make copies of like children of this and give it different stuff. So I don't know if I already, yeah, so these things need to, I gotta make a note. So the quest and objectives, or the parameters, should be able to be changed. Actually, all of this should be able to be changed, I guess. Well, actually, a finished quest might be in parameters and objectives, so I might delete that. I might reorder this. Well, actually, yeah, this looks fine. So quest parameters, objectives, and I might put in brackets, needs to be changeable for children. Something like this. Oh, hey, Brown. How you doing? Yeah, I'm doing good, thank you. How are you? Oh, hey, Spyros, you're here too. Sorry, I haven't been reading chat. I've just been ultra focused at the moment. Oh, hey, T subject. First time joining stream, welcome. This is welcome to hell. This is like where the chaotic part of development happens. What you see in the videos is like a very polished version. Oh, that's just the right temperature, that miso soup. I guess I've had a pretty okay start to the year. I guess it's just kind of been weird because in our, well, in our city, case numbers have peaked, record breaking in the entire country. So that's been kind of fun, except no one's taking it very seriously. So it feels very weird because 6 months ago we had 3,000 and everyone was losing their minds. And now we have 40,000, I think is when I checked today. And no one seems to care. So it's a bit of a weird start to the year because I wanted to go see the new Matrix movie. But I've just been at this internal tug of war because it's like all my friends want to go see it, and it's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. So I have to kind of be the responsible parent of the group, which is ironic because like I'm way younger than all of them. So that's, so yeah, it's just kind of been this constant battle of like, should I spend more time with my friends or should I just keep working because like, I don't know, is it safe? Is it healthy? Am I gonna die? You know, all the great questions of the universe being put in my lap. So I guess it's been as good as I can make it. I've just been working all week, so that I do enjoy. Try to distract you. No, dude, what are you talking about? No, this is 2012. I don't know where you've been. 2022 is for another 10 years. It's 2012, so it's gonna be a good year. We're gonna have Slender the 8 Pages coming out in June. We're gonna have the new Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault coming out. We're gonna have Gangnam Style that's gonna come out. I read a funny Rage comic today. Haha, am I right? What a great year! Well, it's such a great time to be in 2012 right now. Am I right? God, I miss 2012. Such a good year. So with this system, components, we're going to need some event dispatchers. Now, forgive me, I might be using these wrong because I haven't touched Unreal in like a month because I've just been busy like doing other stuff. So I'm pretty sure this is how I used it for other things because I'm going to need some events. I'm going to need on start mission, on end mission, and well, these are like the actual events, so I might, because parameters aren't events, so I won't group those together. Sequencing, though, might be events. It's a bit of a broader thing. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do these yet, but we'll just start with the basics. So we'll do on start and end mission. Seems reasonable. And maybe I should look at this game mode too, because I do have some event dispatches in the base game mode. Okay, so I've got a few things here too that I'm not sure if I should transfer over. Because the way I did the base game mode, which everything's based off, is that I have game paused, game unpaused, game start, game complete, and game over. So I might put those in as well. So we're gonna need, I don't know, should missions have, you know, yeah, it probably would be safe on paused. Then on maybe instead of on start mission, do mission start. And then on mission complete. And then on game over. Because that's like the kind of the death state, I guess. And then on, I'm not sure if pause and unpause will be necessary, but I'll put them in just in case for now. Because I'm looking at, there's a few other parameters here I think I put. Some of these might be obsolete now, because the way, I'm just looking at some of these, the way I had built this. So what happens here is, when you finish a mission, when you finish a level, you can actually tell it to do stuff. So back when I didn't have a main menu, I wrote this, so that when you finished one of the levels, it would just load the next one automatically, or you could tell it to do anything. But none of these are really valid, except I might need to spawn a widget, but I don't think I'll need to do these variables. These two I will need, a game complete and game over screen. Some of these I'm not sure about, so I guess we'll just see how this goes. Because we're essentially kind of making a new system, but we're just kind of salvaging bits from the old one. I'm just trying to see. Okay, so this actually, I'm not sure if this should, maybe this should stay in the base game mode, because this controls pausing and unpausing. But if I look at a child, like the Collectathon game mode, assign max, does that use the pause and unpaused events? I don't think it does. It does, it uses the respawn event, the game over, well, it doesn't really use the game over event. It uses the game complete event, because that's the event that happens when you actually finish a mission. And on some, depending on the game mode you do, it'll change what happens. So this one will stop the stopwatch and calculate your score, which isn't necessarily the case for every game mode. It starts the stopwatch, and it seems to do something here as well, where it's doing the collectible count. So that stuff, okay, I'll have to just think about where to start trying to salvage things. On start, on complete. Okay, so these are for the components for the stopwatch, where it's doing stuff. Okay, so I don't know, maybe I'm looking too deep at the moment. We'll just stick to basics. But I will need some events for mission start. So what does the actual base game mode look like? We've got game start. Okay, so there is a boolean that I do have, which would be handy to keep track of. I do a few things here. So this I might not need, all of this stuff. Okay, so let's think of some variables. We will need a, what's autocomplete? Oh, wait, Okay. All right. So I might not. I need variables. So B, because it's a boolean, and this is going to be for mission active. I think that's what I called it. Yeah. Well, it's called game mode active. We'll call this mission active now. And like whether the mission is currently active. And we can make this an advanced display boolean because we're not really going to be using this in the editor. We're just going to be using it in the code. So I'll start with the... I think this is how we do it with the event dispatches. We're going to bind them. So I'm making a, so what I'm doing here, because I'm just from memory, this is how I was doing the other systems. I'll just go double check actually. Well, actually, I don't know what I did here, because these are all, what are these? Because I'm not binding them. I don't know what I did for these exactly. Oh no, they are, some of the stuff is being bound, okay. So event dispatches are a bit weird. It took me a while to get the hang of them, but essentially what I remember that needs to be done here, at least from my memory, is that, an event dispatcher is basically a thing you can do, which lets other things know when something's happening. So the reason I've made all of these dispatches over here is because essentially, depending on the game mode I'm using, like here's all the dispatches, and I want to be able to say when the mission state, when it starts, I want to be able to then use that to communicate to other actors so that it knows, okay, a mission started. Do we need to do anything? Sometimes it might need to, sometimes for the majority of stuff, not probably. But let's say I wanted to do something where when you started a mission, all of like maybe a certain set of interactables spawned in the world, or maybe the enemies despawned in other areas, or maybe all of the NPCs despawned. Like that would kind of be, you would need to have a dispatcher to be able to communicate to the other systems to do that. Now I have been told that you can do this with a Blueprint interface as well, but I hear that those can be a real mess, and I've used them myself, and yeah, they're very fidgety. So I'm just gonna stick with dispatches for the most part. But the only weird thing is that you have to like bind all of these events. So when you begin play, you have to basically tell the dispatcher, like you have to have an event. Well, I think this is more so if I want to activate the events themselves in here, I have to bind them to the event dispatcher handle and tell it like, hey, so when this dispatcher is called, this blueprint should activate this stuff. And that's basically what's going on. So we'll just do mission start and mission complete. Those are the basic ones. And the reason I'm doing custom events is mainly just for organization. You don't have to do it that way. So I can't remember if, I don't think I use camel. Yeah, I use camel casing. So essentially, the reason I'm using custom events here is because sometimes with events, you might want a lot of stuff to happen. Because at the moment, it's just got a Boolean, but maybe later on, I'll add in like 10 nodes. Now, you could put them here, like you could have it like drag off and do this instead, and you can tell it, hey, just tell it directly to do that. But if you start adding more stuff, just the amount of room, it just gets super like congested. So I tend to just make references to custom events just to keep it clean. And then I put all the events on their own stuff below all of this, because this is all in begin play, and I don't want begin play to be a complete pigsty. So I basically do all of the neat, tidy bindings, and then later down here near the bottom of the blueprint, I will actually give the missions, like give the events stuff to do, because this can get very complicated, and I want to be able to move these around freely without having to get in the way of all of this stuff. So that's why I put them separately down here. So I'll add some comments while we're here. Events to occur when mission starts, and then events to occur when mission is complete. Is there anything else? Yeah, game over. We had that as well. So we'll bind this one. I guess the mission will not be active if the game is over. Or maybe, yeah. Well, actually, let me think. Because there's gonna likely be shared events. Because a mission can end, but it can end in two ways. You can either fail the mission or successfully complete the mission. But both of those, while having different outcomes, will have some common events in common. For example, when you fail the mission, or if you complete it, it should have like some kind of menu pop up that has something written, or it should, you know, depossess control of the player so that you can access menus. So there's going to be some common things. So maybe instead of making them, I'll make another event that does all the common stuff. So on mission. Let's see if I can word this better, because there's failing and succeeding. So maybe on mission fail. So on mission completed, on mission complete, on mission failed. So on mission fail, and then on mission end, which will be all the common stuff. On mission end. So I'll put that first. So what is, I've got to rename these. Mission, oh, okay, mission complete. And then this one will be mission fail. Oh yeah, Black Ops 2 comes out this year. It's gonna be epic. Honestly, I think I actually did try buying Black Ops 2 on Steam like 6 months ago, and it's really sad, dude. There's no one's playing. I think I got into one match, and that was like the only luck I got. So it seems really fun though. It's a real shame because it actually seems great, but it's like no one plays it anymore. At least not on PC. So, rip. Silent moment of silence for Black Ops 2. Because yeah, I didn't really play. I wasn't really into Call of Duty back in its heyday. I was still playing Lego Star Wars because, you know, who wouldn't be, right? But then I missed out. I don't know what I was missing. Oh, wait a sec. Oh, I couldn't get a custom event. There we go. On mission end, on mission complete. On mission fail. And then I have pause and unpause, which might be important, not sure. We'll do it anyway. All right, so let's drag these down. I might add a paused boolean just in case. I don't know if we'll actually need it, but maybe. I think about whether the mission ends. I guess that would also... Well, yeah, actually I can get rid of these, because these will... These should both activate mission end. And then here, yeah, so what I'll do here is say mission end. Or I think on mission, I think I have to call it from the dispatcher. That's what I have to do. So call, there we go. And this will actually call the dispatcher the right way. And I think that's the basics, the fundamental events. I don't think anything needs to happen on tick for this, although I could be wrong. Let me double check, because I think the timer runs on tick. So if I go to the base game mode, do I have a tick event? I have begin play, and I have no tick. Cool. So I might be able to get rid of, or actually let me double check. Okay, no, that's running on a timeline. Okay, so no worries. I can get rid of this. And put a comment bubble on this bad boy. And I'll put some space between these all. Bind mission, we'll just call bind events. And that's like the fundamental, like, bare bones skeleton of how this system should work in terms of the events it needs. We might need more variables, but I think the next, I'm trying to think of the next thing to do here would be to try and port some of the functionality over from the old system. Well, I'll just quickly tidy these up so that these don't show up on the list of variables, because we don't really need these two, these events. So if I compile that now, you can see that now in the, yeah, you can see there's none of that shows up on the class defaults panel, which is great, nice and tidy. Let me think, what else? What does every mission need? So this stuff I might leave, like the pausing, I'll leave on the game mode base. Okay, so I think I see what I've done here, because I didn't use dispatchers the same way. And here, whenever I do an event, I have to call its corresponding dispatcher. So I don't have to do that with the way I've done it now, because I can just plug it straight in to do stuff without having to call the dispatcher. So that's the mistake I made earlier. So this, I don't think I'll need to copy, because this is kind of obsolete. But this stuff, actually, right here, is maybe I will need. So I'll copy that. Well, let's like look at the, okay, so suspend pawns and disable inputs. Okay, I think I know what these do. So I'll try and explain it as I go. So what suspend pawns does, I'll read out what the tooltip says. It says whether or not pawn movement should be stopped after the game has ended. And I think what this means is it's not necessarily stopping you from controlling the pawns. And by pawns, it means like movable actors, so characters. Because I think when the mission ends, when I didn't have this variable in, and if you were moving and the mission ended, you would keep moving and you'd be able to control yourself. But the control is like a different thing. But more importantly, even if you weren't able to control yourself, like if you were falling or you were getting pushed in one direction, you would keep moving. And I wanted to have an option where if the mission ended or was complete, it would just freeze you in place and stop you from moving. That's what that does. So I'll need that to be instance editable, because that's something I do want to change per instance. Because some missions I might want to do that on and some missions I might not. And then there's the second one, which is disable inputs. And that's whether or not we should stop you from moving when like the mission results screen has come up. And that's something I might call into question now, because we might not actually need that in the, like at least that's something I might not do with the way the game's going. But having the option there would be nice. So we'll call this disable pawn input. I think that's what I called it. I think I just called it disabled inputs, but I'll do disable pawn inputs. So I'll make that instance editable, and let's see what I did here, because this has got the this thing. So I can just copy that. And you can see what I've done. Yeah, so you see the thing here. See, I'm glad I thought about this beforehand, because what I'm seeing here is that there's two events. These are two separate events. They both do the exact same thing up until a point, and then they start differentiating themselves. But you can see how they're basically identical, and that's because I didn't make a common event that these would share, because there's game complete and game over, which is the win and lose. And for the most part, they're the same, except at the end. So now that I've done it this other way, where I've got mission end, and then branching from that, we've got mission complete and mission fail. Then we can actually like give it all the stuff in common here, so we don't have to like copy paste it twice, and bing bong, we can just not have duplicates, which is great, because this is so messy when I look at this now, because it's just duplicates of code that doesn't need to be there. And for some reason it wasn't letting me copy it, so I don't know what's going on. What's this? I've never seen this before. Let's go confirm. Oh, what is that? Can I actually... wait, that's a custom event. Okay, I might need to copy this then. So that... Okay, I haven't seen it warn me about that before. It must be a new engine feature, because I updated this to 4.27 a few weeks ago. And it's not letting me copy paste this event for some reason. So I'll copy up to this point and see if I can paste it. There we go. So this is a custom event I wrote called Stop All Pawn Movement, and it basically will get every player controlled pawn in the scene, in this case just the player, and tell it to stop. So that's what it does. It just goes and goes, hey, stop moving. Don't do that, and then it won't. And that's the way it goes. So just make sure that's all neat and tidy. And then I think I do something else extra, which I don't know about this, because this is like casting to the feline character specifically, and it's like stop crouching, stop sliding, stop stomping, and whatever. I feel like there's a better way I could do that without putting it in the actual actor itself. So I might ignore that stuff. And because yeah, basically if you're wall running and the mission ends, then you don't want to keep wall running. It'll stop you because it might bug out or whatever. There's a good reason to stop. Like the reason this event should exist at all, a good reason is because like, let's say a mission ends and you're in the middle of like, you're like running, and let's say it doesn't have anything where it stops you or anything. Let's say you run off a ledge. So the mission's complete, but while the mission's complete and the menu show up, your character keeps running and then it falls off an edge and dies. And then the mission failed. So you don't want that happening, because you don't want it to change its mind. So you want to make sure that the player stops moving in those cases, because you don't want the game to keep playing itself when you can't play it. So we'll call this I think this is stop I think this is stop all pawn movement. I think this is this input or movement? I can't remember. I think this is movement and input. Okay, so we might rename this to maybe just set pawn input. I don't know if I should maybe break these up. Actually, you know what I might do? We might make this. I'll make this its own variable. Make an array. So we'll make this pawn actor. Oh, that's not it. Pawn actor, where is it? Come on. I'm trying to type in, okay, just type in pawn. I don't want default pawn. Yeah, there we go. Object reference, and we make that an array. And then we set, or I think more, no, we don't want to do that. We want to add. I don't, well actually, just trying to think here. Yeah, I guess we'll just do this for now. So every player controlled pawn, it'll just put in an array, which we will then use for later. We'll make a custom event for this too. Get or return all player pawns. And then we can get rid of this. And then we'll get the, I see, wait a sec. Okay. Need to add a input here. So I'm kind of just doing a bit of extra stuff here just so that this can be more flexible for later. So we'll need to get a, what are these? There we go. So I can move all of this. I don't know if I should separate these events into set pawn movement. I think this just stops it immediately. So actually this might be completely unnecessary. Let me think for a moment. Well, now that I've got this, actually, why is it, hold on, one moment, let me just check, because it's setting something. Why is it doing that? Because I'm just looking at this. Oh, okay, it's getting passed in from somewhere. Oh, wait a sec. My Spotify just crashed. That's a first. Everything, my computer just went all quiet on me. What music do I want? Oh, hey. Oh, see you, Brown. Thanks for sticking around, man. Appreciate it. COD Black Ops is your only experienced FPS games? Bruh, we haven't played enough FPS games. But that is probably a good one, though. I wish I got to experience it in its prime. So, let me think. Okay, so, sorry, if I'm not paying attention to chat as much, it's because, like, this in particular, I try to avoid doing work like this on stream because I have to be really focused, but this does need to get done, so I figured, you know, this will be one of those ones where I'm just kind of like, I'm the cool background noise while you work. I don't know who would be working on the first week of the new year, but I know I am, so I figured maybe someone else probably is. So I'm gonna be the soothing background noise, like your imaginary friend. So, I don't think I need a false state. I don't think I need these. Or that. I think I just need this, and then I need to... let me see. And what I might do as well is, because I think I might reuse this a few times. So I might do a thing where it just resets this whole thing first and then sets it again. Oh, I forgot to plug that in. That's a bug I've just fixed that I would have not... Because if I hadn't plugged this in, it wouldn't be returning anything here, and then I probably would have freaked out when I tried to play it and go, why doesn't it reference the character? Why can't it know what the character is? And that'll be why. So I've avoided that crisis. So I think I'm just trying to think of how to, because now that I've had some more experience programming since I first wrote this whole thing, there's so many other ways I can think to do this now, and I'm not sure which is the smartest yet. Has blueprints ever become annoying to me, or to switch to C++? I think, okay, because I think I get asked a lot, like, or told a lot that you should use C++, but I don't think people seem to forget that I'm not a programmer. Like, I'm really not I have no programming well, technically I've got no education in anything, but I'm particularly not a programmer. Like, I did a few, like, a holiday art classes here and there, but I don't have, like, a uni degree or anything. Not that you need one, but I know that I've spent most of my time in design and art. I don't have a very highly technical background, so I try and avoid anything highly technical because that's just not me. Doesn't play to my strengths. I could invest the time to do that, but then I'd end up like Randy or someone who like spends 5 years building an engine or systems instead of the actual game. So that's kind of like when I took on the decision to do Unreal, one of the appeals for me was that it had the blueprint system, because it's like, oh, cool, I don't actually need to learn all of this. Like, I understand how syntax works because I used to use like C# in Unity, but I don't really care how it works. I just want it to work the way I want it to. So when it comes to the logic and the way you think, I think I can handle that. But when it comes to the specific syntax of like certain languages, that's kind of where I'm not prepared to invest the time to learn it, because I just have too much stuff to do. Like, because I'm the only project manager on the team, I'm the only artist, I'm the only designer, I'm the only marketer, I do everything. So it's like, if I was just the programmer, then sure. Actually, I probably wouldn't even do it. I probably would not be the programmer of the team at all, and I'd get someone else. But considering that I'm the only guy, I have to make compromises. And one of those is like, because I do get told, I think I even talked to someone from Epic about this, when it was like, yeah, you should like look into C++ because it runs faster and stuff. But it's like, I think it really depends on the game you're making. If you're making something like AAA, then absolutely, you will have problems with blueprints with performance if you're doing AAA stuff. But I'm not doing AAA stuff. I'm just one dude in his bedroom. I don't think I'm gonna have, like, the game runs, like, it's all built on blueprints already, and it's like fundamentally wise, it's pretty much there in terms of the base systems, and I've encountered no performance problems at all. The game runs at like 200 FPS on my computer and the only thing that gets it to chug is if I set the graphics high. So that tells me that if the graphics on low is 200 and if like the graphics on ultra is 40, then it's a graphical bottleneck. It's not anything to do with the CPU, which is what Blueprints is using. So I don't worry about it because I'm not building an MMO that needs to be like Doom level optimized or whatever. So I'm not too concerned. For me, it's like shipping the game is more important than doing it perfectly, because that's impossible. No one can do it perfectly. And certainly not me, because I'm just some guy. So yeah, that's a compromise. I really thoughtfully made that compromise at the beginning. So that kind of leads it to the state now where, yeah, you know, it looks a bit messy with the visuals, but it works and I understand it, which is the important part. And it runs. That's also an important part. So it's like, it runs, I understand it, I can make changes to it, and yeah, so that's like all I need. I don't really care if it's scripted a certain way or if, you know, like if it, because with C++ in particular, it's not like just doing C# in Unity. Like, you have to take a lot more responsibility with how you code stuff in C++ because you got to handle, it doesn't do a lot of the stuff for you. You have to do your own garbage collection and memory management. And that's like, I'm not that knowledgeable in that area. So I don't mess with that. I could spend years learning it, or I could spend years getting on with the damn game. So I have to kind of choose carefully. But yeah. Oh, did it? Sweet. Well, that's good news. Well, yeah, Spyro, there you go. He proves my point. The game's fine. Doesn't... Because I remember there's some guy actually got into a fight with me once about this on, like, Facebook, of all places. Because I think I posted something about the new momentum system on some Facebook group. And then some industry veteran, 20 years of the industry guy, tries to tell me, like, how to do my job. And he comes in and he's like, you know, you shouldn't really be using blueprints. Like, you're gonna have performance problems. It's gonna be terrible. I could do something way better. And I'm just like, firstly, no one asked. Secondly, the game runs fine. So I don't, like, why do you care? Like, I'm not asking for your help. And it runs, so I don't... But then he like kept trying to like push this point of like how good he was. And he's like, well, you know, in the industry, in the games I've worked on, we've done it this way. And it's just like, no one cares. No one cares, dude. So he got really pissed off because I think what I ended up doing was, because I was listening to him, because he was saying like all the stuff that I get told all the time about you'll have problems with performance and all this. And so I explained to him like, look, I know all of that and I understand all of that, and I willfully chosen very carefully to avoid C++ because I'm not a 20-year veteran like you. I'm just some kid in his bedroom that can draw. So for me and my project, I have different needs than to this guy. So I explained that to him, but he still was really pissed off at me, and he thought and he was like, oh, don't worry, it's not scary or anything. In a few years, you could nail it. And it's just like, I don't have a few years, dude. That's the problem. That's why I don't do it. Because who the hell has a few years? Like, hell, I gotta survive. I gotta get this game out. So he still wouldn't really listen, so I just sent him a screenshot of the profiler with like the FPS counter at like 200, and then he got really angry. He was like, oh, I didn't want to help you anyway. And it's just like, no one asked. Okay, let me go drive out and find someone who asked. But yeah, so that was Facebook boomers, guys, am I right? It's so funny. So that was a little highlight of my day. Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's like I looked him up, this guy. I looked at his profile, and I don't know, he's like done nothing in the last 5 years. So I don't like the fact that he's this veteran or whatever. Like, I don't like, no one cares. Like, I feel like if you're that respectable, you wouldn't need to tell people that, right? Like, I don't go around and tell people that, oh yeah, I've been using Unity for 10 years, because like, who cares? No one cares about that. So I don't like go into other people's threads, and I don't go to other people's threads, period, because I don't have time. Because, you know, if you're an industry professional, you know, you might be busy working, you know, or working on your own project. So, yeah, man, Facebook. It's such a weird such a weird place. It used to be the prime of social media, would you believe? But it's like this degenerate hole now. I don't understand it. But, you know, the kids aren't there. So I do like how there's no dancing kids on Facebook. It's just grumpy old men, which I can tolerate way more than kids. Sorry, that was a bit of a tirade there about Facebook. I'm just trying to remember what I was doing here. But yeah, dude, I have so many stories like that. It's funny. So let me think. What am I doing? Actors of class. Okay. So. So I return all player pawns. I think I should have this should probably be a function, maybe. Or should it? I don't know. I'll do this on begin play. Because we'll need to do this once, probably. And then I take the actual thing, and this is gonna occur when the mission... well, actually, it might be handy to do here too. Because what I'm thinking here is... So I'll get rid of this. Because essentially you want to be able to disable inputs. Okay. Yeah, I might not need to make those events, actually. I could just do this. Actually, you know, give me a moment to think. Okay, I need a notepad for a second. So I'm looking at these events, because here's what I'm thinking. Because as I look at these variables, and now that I have this experience of actually using these systems in the game mode state, some things are occurring to me. Because I'm thinking about this start event, and it's like, what if before you've started the quest? Because I think I might have mentioned this or not, I can't remember, but I'm gonna have NPCs in the game. And if that's a surprise, well, there you go. There's your reveal for today. I haven't talked about it in the devlogs yet, because again, this is still like in development. But the plan is when you're like engaging a mission, this is how the flow works. So you are in worlds, then you talk to NPC, and then he gives quests. Now, here's the thing. When he gives the quest, because you're not going to be able to move while engaged in dialogue. So, let me think. So if you're engaged in dialogue, you're not going to be able to move. So you might want a thing in here that tells you to enable. Actually, we might need another event. Let me think, because, okay, real quick. Here, sorry, my brain is going faster than I can talk. Because you might notice, if we back up a second, if we go into one of these missions like the collectathon. Oh, oops. You'll notice that there's a countdown. It goes ready, go, and then the actual game starts. So you can't actually, like if I restart that, if I try and move, it won't let me move until the countdown goes. So I'm thinking about, for events like that, because there needs to be 2 start events, kind of. Or a start and then something that happens at a delay. So the question is whether or not, you know what, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I don't need to put that in the parent. Maybe that can go in the child event for the specific things it needs. Because I'm thinking, do I want to bake that functionality into the base mission system? Because not every mission system will work, like not every mission will work that way. Because sometimes, well, yeah, what am I don't know. My thoughts are a little cluttered at the moment. Because I'm just thinking the kind of events that would need to happen. Because some quests will work like this, but not all of them. Some of them, though. Some of them you'll start it, and you are shown like that. Maybe a camera thing happens, like maybe a camera animation plays where it shows you like, here's the objective, go to it. But while it's showing you that, you can't move. It's just, you know, a little cutscene or whatever. And then there's a delay, and then after that delay, you can move, and the mission actually then starts. So that's like, there's like 2 starts, I guess, because you're initiating the mission and then it starts. So I don't know if like, I'm trying to think, because these things, should they be in the act, like the parent, or should I specify those in the child or something like that? Let me think, because I think what I've done previously, let me look at it, because this is the, okay, let's look at the parent for the game mode and see why I did it here. Because the way I did it here was, I think I did it in the parent. I think. Because I actually know these events don't get called, these just exist. Okay, so find players. This I might need. Complete. Just thinking. So I think the way this works is, stop all pawn movement. Let me think. Because here's what I want. Well, firstly, I think I've now decided that that stuff should be in the parent. Because there's universal stuff that most of them will likely use to some extent. Yeah. So then it becomes a thing where I want it to be a little more flexible, because all that event can do is disable inputs. It can't enable them, though. And I'm not sure how I've done that in the past, because I have done it, because I'm just looking here, because it's stop all movement, and then it's also got that thing where it says disable input. Oh no, there is a thing where, okay, there is an enable event too. Okay, I must have missed that from earlier. Because, well, here's what I'm thinking. Instead of having these as separate, because I've got enable and then I've got disable. Well, there's one called stop all pawn movement, which has the disable in there, but also there's other stuff. And then there's one just enable. What I want is one event where you can pass in a Boolean and you can tell it to update the input, like the input state of all the characters. And if the Boolean's true, it enables input for everything. And if it's false, it disables it. So instead of having to type 2 events, I can type 1 event with just a Boolean pass through. And then that whole disable movement immediately thing could just be its own thing. That's how I want to do it. So, okay, now that I've said it out loud, it's a bit clearer to me what I need to do. So I need to, for each of those pawns, I need to have a Boolean. We'll put this Boolean, and what do we call this? Enabled. So if that is, it's not a branch. There's like another thing. Maybe a branch. So we plug that in and loop for each thing, if that's true. Now, player controller. I don't know if I keep track of those or not. Do I need to plug that in? It would appear not. Cool. Oh, thanks for redeeming Hydrate. Yeah, so kind of like a hub world. I don't want to go into detail yet though, because it's still like, it's barely been done yet. Like this is just like the grassroots systems for it, but I don't have anywhere close to a hub world yet. Sorry, you almost made me spit my suit. How dare you call them pawns? Gabby is queen. Well, yeah, I guess she is. That'd be a hell of a function. Get all queens. Good one. Oh, hey, who's this guy? Marinos Dev. Okay, sorry, it's just a bit tricky reading that. Yeah, so here's progress at the moment. Here's how it's going. That's an interesting. Being a veteran in technology is not that useful when technology changes. I mean, depends. If you're a Bethesda veteran, that's like maybe the only instance I found where that's valuable. Because I know this guy, I think I might have briefly touched the story before, but would you believe, just crazy by chance, my mum went to high school and college with this girl who really liked drawing ponies. And then that girl ended up marrying this guy who happened to work at Bethesda Game Studios way back in like the arena days, right? He's still there. And they ended up marrying, and then they brought her on as an artist on the team because they didn't have a lot of artists back in the 90s. And now they're still working there. How many years now? I think he celebrated 20 years, the husband, and the wife's been there for a little less, but still quite a while. So yeah, it's weird. They kind of feel like extended family in a way, because we went to visit them once, and I had this whole fun experience as a teenager where I got to visit Bethesda Studios. So yeah, like I try and keep in touch with them because, like, I guess in a way I'm kind of like their estranged like cousin or something who does game dev. So every so often they'll see my stuff in their feed and like will respond to it or whatever. So that's kind of nice to have. But yeah, it's funny because when I think about the tools that they use, like Creation Engine and all that, it's like, okay, because it's funny because everyone always rags on Bethesda for like, oh, they should really upgrade their engine, but I don't think you guys understand that they've invested so much money into maintaining that, and they've trained all of their staff to use it, and to switch would just be too much overhead, I think. Like, I think for them, dealing with like the Fallout 76 mess was probably maybe more viable to them than teaching them a whole new tool set, because Bethesda games are complicated. Imagine like, it's like when they redid, when BioWare redid Mass Effect from the old engine to Frostbite for Andromeda. You know how much of a mess that was? So I think Bethesda had the choice of like, we're doing a multiplayer game now. Do we try and winch in multiplayer into our existing engine that everyone here is trained to use? Or do we drop all of that and invest like hundreds of thousands of dollars to train all of our programmers again in a whole new set of software, and then make a new multiplayer framework, and then remake all of our frameworks, because we have to remake all of them now in if they were to use like Unreal or something. So it's funny. They're in a very it's such a unique situation, but it's just kind of funny how it's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You either the devil you know or the devil you don't. And the devil you know is the the Creation Engine, which is based off like 2004's Gamebryo engine, which they used for Morrowind. So it's like, at least they know that devil. They're very familiar with it. But that's also the downside, is like it's an engine from 2004. So it's, you know, the devil you know, the devil you don't. So that's a little... I guess that's the only time I've seen being a veteran in something to be valuable, because I don't know any other company that would stick to using the exact same tools for that long. I guess for most game studios, I can easily imagine switching would be easy, because, you know, Bethesda games are it's not like a Battlefield game or a first-person shooter, you know. You can't just remake those easily. They have to make all their dialogue and quest systems, and, you know, anyway. I can easily see why that company in particular would want to just keep the tools they have. But yeah, being there for a while at Bethesda, that probably does actually pay off. Because then it's like, yeah, I've been using the same engine since 2004, which, like, who the hell's been using Unreal Engine 4 since 2004? You want to know who? Nobody, because it didn't exist. So that's like one benefit, I guess. But, you know, comes with its own problems still. Anyway, so there's a little fun story. Well, yeah, I guess Valve have that same thing too, except I think Source seems more flexible. I don't know, a little bit. Because I think it's because they kind of built it. Well, actually, no, I don't know if this is true. But I was going to say that they built it from scratch, but I actually don't know. I think I did remember watching some video once where it kind of talks about like the history of a lot of game engines. And I can't remember the exact video or the exact ones, but I think like for 3 of the most common engines nowadays are all kind of based off either the Quake engine or the Unreal Engine, I think. I think those are the 2 ones. Actually, I'm not sure about the Unreal one, but I know that like a good number of games are using the same stuff that like, I think it's Doom, the id engine, and then it was like Quake. And I think like Source stemmed from that branch. So they all have like, they're all kind of relatives in a weird way. I can't remember the exact engines though, but it goes something like that. Someone in chat might know what I'm talking about. But I think one of the tricks, you know, is because if you look at like a Source engine game like Half-Life 2 and then like another game, I can't remember the name of it, but they have this flickering light code that has been in the engine since like 1999 and they haven't changed it since, and you'll be able to tell there's like a certain flickering light pattern, and that's the giveaway. When you see a game with that specific flickering light pattern, you know that it's based off the Quake engine, or it's a cousin of the Quake engine, and it's really neat. I love those little tricks or those little details, but I can't remember the exact story. It's got a complicated family tree, but it goes something like that. But I just thought it was interesting. So let me look. Yeah, so I want to do enable inputs. Oh yeah, so actually I want that to be there and that to be there. But yeah, I will say I do envy the Bethesda folks. Not the fact that, because I don't know, I'm not really a company guy, and I don't necessarily, I'm not digging at the opportunity to work at a company, but it is kind of cool how, because they've been there a long time now, the 2 people I knew, and it's like, it's kind of nice because it's like, oh cool, it's like you don't have to worry about getting fired every year, which is great. Because just in my own experience, it's like, you know, I've never had a full-time position. I've always just been part-time casual everywhere sort of deal. So I think that in our generation, typically that seems to be the way it's going. So it's fun. I'll meet people sometimes who are like way older than me that have worked at the same place for like 30 years. And I can't picture myself doing that or anyone my age doing that. But when I look at them and see how they do it, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, actually. Like, that's respectable. Because that's like, I'm sure that would feel very comforting. So now that I've got this going on, I think I should change this to update pawn input. So I'm passing this boolean through and it will enable or disable input. And then I want to do the same thing, but with update, oh no, I think it's stop pawn movement or something like that. And I don't think I need a boolean for this actually. This one is going to be much more straightforward. Maybe. Yeah, well, it saves me having to do a cast. Just do that instead. So I just get the component by whatever. I think that should work because it's if it's a derivative of pawn, which all characters are, and if it has that component, which all characters do, then yeah, that should work. So you can see that's a lot. I had a lot more junk in those old ones, so I can just delete all this now. And you see how cleaner this is? It's nice. So that's kind of how I want that to work. Now I just gotta... So this I need to... That's gonna stay. And then these two need to move. Thanks for the follow, Sledge Duck. Oh yeah, so source based off Quake. I think yeah, something like that. It's quite interesting. But yeah, it's cool. So even this engine right now, Unreal, probably has its own deep-seated history, which is kind of cool. Actually, fun fact, I think it was 2004 is actually when they started working on Unreal Engine 4, would you believe? Which sounds crazy. That was a long time ago. That's when the actual idea and production started, like early development. But it wasn't until like, what, 2014, I think? Like 10 years later that it released, which is like crazy to think about. So now that we've got that, when mission starts, I'm going to update pawn input. I think, okay, so I think I see how this might shape up now. I think, okay, I'm just trying out something here. Not sure if I should do this in the child components or not, but I think it might save me trouble. Because essentially, so essentially how this will work is, because this is going to kind of be the fundamental base thing for any mission. And if you make a new mission, because the way I want this to work is, when you create a mission in the game, you're copying the actor. So you're making a child actor, which is based off the parent, which has the mission components, which is what I'm working on right now. And when you have a new mission, which would be a child actor that you place into the scene, that should work a certain way. So you should be able to make, like, the start and end events should automatically kind of work out of the box. I think that's the word I'm looking for here, is out of the box. So I don't want it where if you make a new mission, like a derivative or a child, I don't want people to have to go in and if it's just something basic, I don't want them to have to tell it exactly what to do on start and end for each one. I want there to be a set of base events that all of the missions have in common that just work, so that when you drag and drop it in, you can reliably assume that the mission start and end states and all that will work, and that it'll do stuff you would expect it to do. So for example, here you would expect that if all of the player's movement is turned off when the mission starts, by default, you'd want it to enable it, right? But maybe you'd want to change that under certain circumstances. But let's say you didn't touch anything and just drag and dropped it out of the box, you'd want it to work intuitively. So the way I'm thinking here is, yeah, so out of the box, the default thing I'm going to write is that when this boolean is true, which it will be by default, then make sure that all of the playable pawns can be moved, because that's probably a good idea, because for some reason they may not be with how I continue to build this. So I think that's important. But you do have the option to change that. And what I'm doing here with this boolean is that instead of having to, if you made a child of this, instead of having to create more nodes to tell it not to do that, you can just untick this and it'll skip it, and you don't have to worry, and you can just do your own stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about here is, because this is pretty bare bones, but I want to add in that bit of stuff in here that makes the out-of-the-box experience better, so that when someone is like, because I try to write everything as if someone else will read it, because it may happen. So, and even for me, because I might look at this in a month and not understand any of this. So I think that's also important to just, I think most programming schools would teach you that, to be like, hey, when you're writing code, always pretend that someone else will read it and will have to use it. And because I've tried doing things that way, and even though no one else has used my code, it just makes everything so much easier, because it's like, oh, I get this now because it's intuitive. And you know, Future Ray is gonna love me. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on in my head right now, and I'm trying to kind of follow that instinct as I write this. So I want to make another boolean called be auto disable input on mission end. So yeah, it has occurred to me that if I should have these interchangeably, like whether you can enable input on mission end, but oh, actually, now that I say it out loud, maybe. Let me think for a moment. You know what I might do? I can probably pass. Can I pass booleans through here? I can. So yeah, that might help. So yeah, here's an idea. I want to add in inputs to the actual events. Now this might break. Yeah, that'll break. Because it's what do you call it? You know, the thing? Yeah, these things. So I have to like drag these in again. At least I think, I don't know, this actually might not work out the way I'm thinking, but it's worth a shot. Again, it's been a while since I've used dispatches, so this might completely not work. So I need to replace these because these will break. I think that's okay, cool. So then what I can do is drag that there into these parts. And here's the problem though. It's when we get to these bits that I'm not sure about. When mission completes, mission fails. Let me think. Because I'm just thinking about where these are set from, because that's the thing I can't remember, because it's been a while since I've had to program stuff. Because Well, it compiles, that's good. Because essentially what I want is when you create a child, or actually, yeah, let's go to the mission base. So the component is going to be right here. And you want, what is it I want? Let me just think for a moment. How am I going to interface with this? Because I have the pass-through booleans here, but how do you actually set them in the first place? Well, you might say the way you do that is when you call it, you can give it an input, but I don't necessarily want to be able to do it from there. What I want is for you to be able to do that from outside of the blueprint. I want you to be able to look at the blueprint, and I want you to be able to just tick a box and it just works. But where will that box show up? It would have to be a variable, right? Yeah, it would have to be a variable. Well, if I try to reference one of these events, yeah, hold on a moment. Let me think. That might be a bit superfluous now that I think about it, of doing it as a input on the event, because here's the actor. So the actor is when you're actually designing missions, this is what it'll look like. So let's say you want to design your own mission. You drag in one of these and say, on mission start, I want it to show text on screen, or whatever specific thing you want for that mission. That's all happens here. But I'm looking at this, and maybe this shouldn't be accessible there, if you know what I'm saying. Like, maybe we don't need that to be there. Maybe that should be happening behind the scenes, out of view. Because I'm just trying to think of a use case where that would be necessary to have that Boolean input there. Because the only time it's needed is for the parent. Which means... yeah. Oh, okay, so I'll scratch all that. I think I went a bit too far there. So I can delete these. We could probably pass through... oh, let me check the way I did it here on the game mode. Okay, well, I did do something here, but a lot of this, again, I'm not going to do it this way anymore. So yeah, never mind. I'll undo that. Yeah, because things can get kind of complicated with event, because there's so many ways you can use event dispatchers. It's just like a matter of figuring out what's an appropriate way in this specific context to use this dispatcher, and I don't think the way I was thinking is going to be it. So I'm gonna backtrack. I think just having simple booleans might be the way. Cause yeah, so I'll need... okay, what am I gonna need here? I'm gonna delete these. Enable input on mission start. So I'll just make 4. Yeah, so I'll just do it like the kind of the old way, or like the more tedious way that's simpler, where it's like I just give it booleans. So this might not make any sense, but I'll explain it in just a moment when I set this up, just to show you what I'm trying to do. All right, so let me just drag these in the right spots here. Okay, I might take this out real quick. Because here's what I, wait, maybe I went too far. Yeah, so here's what I need. So it's this thing, and then these 4 booleans. Because this, if I put them here, I think this is kind of standard stuff that every mission should have control over. So what this is essentially is like, inputs where it's like, do we want to auto disable or enable inputs when the mission starts, or vice versa, you know? So it gives me a lot of flexibility. So now, the first, well, let me think. Auto enable on mission start. So I think the first step would be to check if any of these two are true, because on mission end is in its own thing. So if either of these are true, because if both of them are false, then we just don't do this at all, because we don't need to. But if either of them are true, then we would then need to tell it. Well, let's think. If, okay, so if enable is, whoa, wait a second. Enable or disable. Because the problem here is, because booleans are very efficient, but also this kind of, because this kind of makes this one not needed, but the naming of it doesn't make that clear. Because when I look at this, it's like, okay, so if this is on, then it'll, yeah, hold on, let me think for a sec. So I can't just drag it in there. Okay, yeah. I need to do something like this. No, wait. I think. Actually, yeah, maybe that is correct. But the index would be whether that, well, I guess it doesn't matter which. But if that, if disable is true, no, hold on. If disable, because it's binary, that's the issue. Because it kind of makes, maybe that should be an enum instead. That's the, I'm thinking of it like an enum, but it's not an enum, it's a boolean. But an enum is like, I don't like using enums in Unreal because you have to make a new asset, and I don't want to do that. But I guess I already did do it for the game mode, so maybe that's fine. Let me think. Because I want it to, yeah, I think an enum maybe. That's kind of how, I should have done an enum. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. So I'll need to go to data, create a new enum. Where have they put enums? I can't remember. I think it's got to be in blueprints, right? Yes. Inputs. Well, let's think of a good name for this. So what is this? This enum is for the purpose of telling the well, it's really, oh, let me think, because okay, let me notepad. Gotta collect my thoughts. So the enum should, I want it so that, because the thing I'm choosing is when the mission starts, what should it do to the input? Should it ignore anything and not do anything? Should it turn on input, or should it disable input? Or could I do that with Boolean still? Because now I'm thinking about it. Auto, oh yeah, so mission start input state. Be mission stop Give me a moment. So I might be able to use 3 booleans instead of 4 and no enums. Or maybe 4, but I'm just using them more smartly. I think that's the idea. So mission start input state would go here. And then there'd be a auto update. Yeah, something like that. So it's still 4 booleans, but I think the way I've named them is going to make this a bit clearer for me to organize. So that auto set input. Ah, okay, yeah, okay, this makes more sense now. So yeah, I don't need to do the enum stuff. So yeah, I thought surely it's gonna be simple, right? Like it doesn't need an enum, does it? Right, yeah. So the way this will work, something like this. Because the way that, okay, it's just with the way with booleans, they're funky things. So let me put this together. Once I draw it out, you'll see. It'll make sense. I know I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but this is what it's like, guys. I know that in the videos it looks all easy and it's all just whipping by and happening, but this is what it actually looks like. I'm basically a rambling old man talking to himself. Cool. All right. So now I can explain what this does now. So essentially, oh, thanks so much PvP Man for resubscribing with Prime. Hell yeah. Just had a good sleep? Well, that's great. Great news. I'm happy. You'll have to lend me some of that good sleep. I need it. I really need it. But awesome. Thanks so much for subbing, man. I appreciate it. So now I can explain how this works. So essentially, when you start a mission, when you start one, you are presented with some options. So you can see in the top here, there's some booleans now. I've got 4 of them. Now I might actually need to reorder these. Focus on the bottom 2 first. So the first one is whether or not we want to automatically update the input state of the pawns, of the playable input pawns when the mission starts, which means do we want to change whether or not they receive input or not. This isn't actually telling it to enable input or not. It's just saying, hey, do we actually want to remind the player pawns to update or not? Like, you know, do we want to change it? Do we want to tell it to send the message to turn input on? And then it does the same for when the mission ends. Now, if those are enabled, then these top ones here come into effect. And this is the actual thing it sets it to. So if that's true, if we do automatically set the input state when the mission starts, then it will. And it'll set whether the pawn can move to whatever this one is. And if that's false, then it'll disable input. And if it's true, it'll enable input. But if that's unticked, it will not do anything to the input state. It just will ignore it. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking, because you might not want it to. Always. Sometimes you might want to leave it alone because maybe another code and another script somewhere else might want to control it for whatever reason. So in case it does, we can tell it to ignore all. That's why there's a branch. So if that's false, it never does this. It never goes into all the player pawns and tells it whether or not to enable or disable it. It'll just leave it alone, which might be what we want sometimes. But if it is specified and it is turned on, then it will actually do something and it'll just set it to the value of this boolean. So that's how it works. And the benefit of having a fully dynamic game engine is all of this just works. And it actually works perfectly. Well, that's the idea. I haven't actually tested this yet, but it just works, okay? It just works. We're gonna need 16 times the code. All right. So the reason I'm putting these here is basically because I feel like every mission will have a need for that on a base, like, fundamental level. Because the goal is to make making missions easy. Even if it means making it so that I can make missions easy hard. What am I saying? So even though that the process of making the missions easy to make is hard, for me it's worth it if it makes making the missions easy. And that is a really twisted sentence to say out loud, but I think you get what I mean. It's sacrificing me now for me in the future. So, mission active. Set, yeah. Okay, cool. So this kind of should do what I want it to now. Now, what comes next? Let me think. Events to occur when mission is complete. We don't want to call mission start, we want to call mission end. But let me think. I don't know if we need another boolean for let me think for a moment. Because I'm thinking when the mission's over. Let me check on something. Because I'm wondering if we'll need to know whether the mission was a success or not later. Because the thing I'm thinking about here is when the mission ends, there is one or two things that'll happen. Well, to be more, let me see if I can word that better. So when the mission is over, you've either finished the mission successfully or not. The thing is, there are events that happen to account for either of those states. Now, I haven't specified yet what those are, but the dispatches are there so that when the circumstances dictate that the mission was a success, there is an avenue to tell it what to do in that case. And there's also the one for the other scenario. The question is, would another blueprint need to know specifically when a mission ends whether the outcome was a success or not? I won't worry about that now. I'm sure it'll emerge later. Return all pawns, update input, stop movement immediately. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. So there's also the other thing where it's like, do we want to be stop movement on mission start, and then let me just check something. What is the thing called? It's called like stop all movement immediately. And that is a character. So we'll call this character movement. So that's another thing to consider too. So that's what we'll do here. Wait a second. Yeah, wait a moment. Yeah, okay, I do need to do that twice. Because it's on mission end and on mission start. There we go. Now, let me just have a look at the old one and see if there's anything else. Because a lot of this, by the way, is kind like the only thing I really need is that whether or not the game mode's active, which we do have a boolean for, the input stuff, which we are now sorted out, and then all of this stuff we don't like. That's a bit, I'm not going to do it that way anymore. This is essentially the stuff from before I had a main menu in the game. So if you were to complete a mission, in the old system, it would automatically either load the next level or whatever, but we're not going to need. So I'm going to ignore all that. We're not going to need that. So this has kind of all been accounted for now. That's been accounted for. This stuff I won't account for because I'm going to keep this where it is. And same with this and with this. So that means I think we've ported this over and simplified it. Except for this. I think that's the thing. So, okay, because I'm running out of time, but I'll get this one over and then that'll be the stream. So yeah, so essentially what this does, this actually tells the game mode when the player dies. Like it actually makes it aware of like, oh, the player has died, do something. That's kind of how this works. So this is very important, of course. We are going to need this in our mission system. I just don't know if this is like being referenced anywhere. Game start, game save game. Okay, yeah, so it is happening just at the end. All right, so we should just be able to copy that whole thing over. And we have to make so we're gonna need a few adjustments because there's a few missing events. But the fundamental way this works shouldn't change. I think this is all kind of the same, except we won't need to do this for loop anymore. We will only need to just get the array itself because we're doing that somewhere else. Because essentially what we're doing is we're getting the health component and the actor state of all of the playable pawns, which is just Gavi in this case. And we're saying, hey, when this character's health is depleted, do something about the mission. Maybe the mission failed or the mission whatever, or respawn or whatever. Like, you can kind of tell it how that all works here, basically. I made an array called player health components, which I'm not sure if I actually need anywhere. Do I use that? I guess not. I only use it once. So yeah, maybe I won't bother making that variable again. Or maybe I use it in the get player health components. Yeah, maybe I do need that as a variable. Give me a moment. Player health components. That is probably good. Because that's kind of a very important part. Oh, hey, Bullfrog. Hello. Glad you stopped by, man. Oh, is that finished? Sorry, I was just reading chat. Oh, wait a sec. What did I just do? Is that an array? Wait a sec. Oh, it's not an array. That's why. Bing bong. Put you there. Okay. Now, this. Delete. So we'll call this mission failed when the player dies. Well, actually, yeah, that seems pretty fair, but just in case, we'll do like death causes, or maybe game over on player death. Because I think we'll mostly have that true, but for some reason we may not want that true. Should the mission end when the player dies? or whether the mission ends when the player dies. So we'll do an and. Looks like we got a, I just noticed on chat, sorry I've just been very focused, but I noticed we got a new guy here who's never heard of Project Feline before, which is crazy, because it's like the best game ever. I don't know what you mean. But if you want to know more about this off stream, because I'm going to be heading off soonish, but if you want to see the rabbit hole that we've been down so far over the last few years, you should check out my YouTube channel, because I have a whole devlog series going all the way back to day one, when I was like first developing this thing. And I've got like a whole series of videos kind of telling the whole story. This is just kind of like the boring bits in between, but the cool stuff is all on YouTube. So I think I have it linked in my cards down below if you want to get involved in the journey, the Project Feline journey of one crazy man trying to develop a parkour indie game with anime. Okay, does that... I think that's plugged in right. I think this I left out on purpose because for some reason, can't remember now, but I think I left this unplugged for a good reason probably. Because that's the thing about me that I forget sometimes, is that sometimes I'll leave stuff like this unplugged and I'll know at the time that there's a reason, but I might not always remember what it is. So I don't know if I was just being complacent or if I was actually trying to help myself out. You know, sometimes your worst enemy is yourself. So I can't remember why I left that unplugged, but I have to believe that there was a reason I did, because I don't think I would leave that unplugged on accident. What's the respawn event? Because there is an actual thing in here. Oh, I've left that blank too. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just leave it as it is. So essentially what this is doing, I'll try and explain this. This is essentially binding the game mode to the player's health and uses the player's health to determine the mission status. So for example, if you die or if you take damage or whatever, it'll do stuff. So if you die, it will fail the mission. Well, we don't actually need it to, we can just, you know, we say, maybe instead of game over, we call this mission over or mission end on player death. So if we die, do we end the mission or not? So we can choose whether we want to do that. And then when the player respawns, we can tell it to do stuff, which I don't think I have anything here. So we can actually change that on the child components too, probably. And then when the character's destroyed physically, like if the blueprint just gets deleted, I don't know, I want to plug that in, but I left it unplugged on the other one, so I might just leave that alone. Okay, so that's kind of like, that's kind of all ported over. Now, whether or not we can actually, we can't make a mission with this yet, but I think now might be a good time to see if this tests and works in practice, just so if we can get the events triggered. So I might add some print strings just to test this out. Because we won't have a mission yet, but we're building the blocks that help us do that in the future, more or less. So let's see if we can actually get these events to trigger in the world. So I'm gonna have to create a test gameplay layer to do this. So I think, yeah, I don't need things on these. But I think, yeah, just those key events, or whether we've activated, deactivated, win, or lose. Those sort of the states I want to keep track of. So I'll need to, I'll call this mission. All right. Now, this may not work, but we'll see. Because, okay, so what I'm gonna do is, because I just gotta check something. Gotta see if this level okay, so this level blueprint has nothing happening in it right now. There is stuff, but this is all, we can delete this because it's being unplugged. Or is it? Actually, let me think. Well, actually, let me check something. I might actually need that. Yeah, no, I don't need it. None of these scenes exist anymore. So we can delete all that and we can just start from here, I guess. Maybe. Or not, actually, there might be another thing that I have to check. Because I want to just get like an empty level blueprint, more or less. The thing is, I do have one of these sub-levels loaded in, which may have... Okay, yeah, so this one does have stuff on it. So what I want to do, real quick, is make an empty level to test this. But I'm going to use the geometry of this level, but using like an empty gameplay level. So I'm going to create like a new map. We'll call this example gameplay 02. And this is empty completely. And we're going to go to the, because I'll explain this in a moment. We're then going to load this in, unload that, and then load that in. So the way I do this is with my levels, I usually keep things separate. So I have gameplay as one map. Anything gameplay related, like any code or sequencing, is on one level. All meshing is on one level, all lighting is on, and I just kind of load them in all persistently. But I keep them separate because that's usually good practice to do. So now I should have a scene, and the spawn point, it should just, yeah, it should spawn me in exactly where the camera was, but there'll be no checkpoints. So you see how most people who've probably seen this scene will see that there's now no moving platforms, there's no checkpoints, there's no enemies in this area, because that's all on the gameplay layer. But I've loaded into a completely blank slate gameplay layer now, because I just want to test how the mission system works. You can see here, there's no spinning blades or lasers now, it's all gone. It's in the other scene. So, now that we have that blank area, but I still have that geometry to work with, we can then open the sub-level blueprint for gameplay 2, which you can see is completely empty right now. And I'm just going to give it like a test thing. So I'm going to create some trigger boxes so that we can activate this mission. So make a box trigger. Actually, let me select levels again. Windows levels, and we'll open up gameplay 02. Delete those, try it again. So we'll make something. Or even better, I actually do have another thing we can use. We'll use checkpoints. So we'll get a checkpoint, we'll get a goal. I think, what have I've renamed these. If I go to placeables, progress points, here we go. So we have a start line and a finish line. Why is it placing it outside the level bounds? That's very strange. What? Keep saying placing outside level bounds. I don't want it to do that. Just put it where the thing is. I guess that's all right. So I'll have to move these. we'll just kind of put them a good distance from each other. Because at the moment, I'm just going to make something real simple. When I touch this, it'll start, and when I touch that, it'll end. So I should be able to bind these, I believe. So I should be able to open up that level blueprint and say, hey, this guy and this guy. So in start line, this should have events. On activate, I think it's something like that. Okay, no, not that. Oh, what did I should have dispatches for these, I think. Let me open the blueprint. Oh, do I not have dispatches for these? Oh, no. Oh, okay, so there's an on checkpoint activated event. That's what I've called it. Maybe I should have made that not as specific. Yeah, there we go. On checkpoint activated. Or wait. Oh no, these are custom events. So I can't actually buy. Okay, well I have to redo those later. So yeah, I can't use these because they don't have a. They're using custom events, not event dispatches, because I didn't know what those were yet when I made them. So we'll just use triggers, I guess. I have to redo my checkpoint system. It looks like that's the price I pay for not thinking it through. Where's trigger volume? Trigger volume. So now what I should be able to do is drag in trigger volumes and then give this on actor begin overlap. Okay, here we go. Bind on overlap. And then we can bind on actor begin overlap. We'll do a sign. So I'll just do like a little, it's gonna be messy, but I'm just gonna test it out. It's not how I would ideally want to use this system, but this is a way to test it. We'll also need to actually put in the actor in the scene too. So let me open up missions. So we'll just put in the mission base, and it's just going to be an actor in the scene. And we will tell it... Oh wait, we don't want to do that. Start. Mission start, we want to call that. Oh no. Mission, on mission start. Yeah. Then we want to put that there. So that's kind of how this should work. So let's actually hop in and see what happens. So it should have a print string, right? Yeah, there we go. So I ran through that trigger box. Okay, so that might have made no sense to anyone watching, but I think there should be a way I can show trigger volumes. I can't remember the exact way of doing it. There's like a debug command I can type in that shows show trigger. I forgot the name. Brushes? No. I can't remember the console command. Unreal Engine show collision console command. What does the Google tell me? Show collision. Ah, there we go. Except the trigger volumes are still invisible. So I guess that's not There should be another, like, volume. Show volumes. Yeah, there we go. We got it. Okay, that's actually really hard to see. But you can see... Can I make those thicker? I don't know if there's a way I can make these thicker. No, I don't think so. But anyway, point is, it's very hard to see. Maybe if I turn off anti-aliasing or something. Oh. Okay, let me spawn back in. But essentially, oh god, that is really hard to see. I have to crank up the graphics everywhere except anti-aliasing. Oh, did that save? Show volumes. Oh god, the post-processing makes it difficult. But anyway, we can see these invisible boxes. That's the idea. You see these orange boxes? It's very hard to see on stream, probably. You know, maybe if I make the ground a different color, that could do it. Can I select the floor and make that black? Super grid black. There we go. That might make it a bit easier. There we go. You can kind of maybe see them a little better now, but when I run through this volume, I see it triggers twice, so that's not good. But it essentially goes mission start in the top corner. And then when I touch this volume, it stops me from mission complete, and then it stops me from being able to move, which is exactly what I told it to do. So that's great. The problem is that it's activating twice. Now that's not good. We don't want it to activate twice. So I don't know why that's happening. Mission complete. That is very weird that it's happening twice. Oh, and I forgot to call bind players. That was probably I should put that in for sure. Now it's activating 3. Oh. What if I lower the frame rate? Maybe it's a frame rate thing again. T.max FPS 20. Okay, it still activates twice. But when I touch the end one, it only does it once. So that's really weird. Okay, now it only did it once. Okay, now it did it twice. Now it did it twice again. That's so inconsistent. Might be the way I'm doing the on thing. Maybe I shouldn't use overlap. On hit. Yeah, maybe that's it. Give me a moment. I'm gonna try and see if it's just the on overlap doing that or not. Because if it's the actual mission system, then that's very bad. We don't want it to activate duplicates. So this looks like a train wreck, but let's try this now. I'll set the FPS back up and turn on show volumes. Okay, now it's just not doing anything. So why is it doing it twice? Is the game gonna have ragdolls? No, probably not. Mission start. Well, I wonder if it is interact, because it must be hitting something twice. Maybe if I just disconnect that. Just do print string. Call this. See if it's just a. Okay, so it's not my mission system. It's this thing. Well, that's worrying. Maybe this is maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe there are two volumes that it's overlapping. Gotta check. What's this person got? I don't think my character has two collisions. Well, that's not a good solution. I want to know why it's firing twice at all, because I feel like it shouldn't be. I don't want to have to like band-aid it up and tell it explicitly to only fire once. I want it that it doesn't fire twice at all, because I feel like it shouldn't. This one isn't resolved. Overlap fires twice. Maybe it is the floor, because it is touching the floor. That could be it. So if I move these up... Oh, I gotta show volumes. Ah, it still triggers twice. That's so weird. It's only one object, right? Well, here's a countermeasure that I think would be good to add to the component itself, because maybe I should just make my component smarter. Because what I think should happen is mission start shouldn't activate at all if the mission has already started. So we'll do a check. We'll get is mission active, and if that's true, then don't activate the mission again. So that way, you know, modern problems require modern solutions. So if mission active is false, then make mission active true. And then we'll do the print string. And then likewise here, we'll check it. We'll go if mission active is true, then don't do any of this stuff. Line that up to be nice and even. And then we put this after, yes. Oh wait, not plugged in there. Sorry, wrong one. Yeah, there we go. So let's try this now. So if I touch this, yeah, it only does it once. Yes! All right, well that works. So yeah, when I touch the first one, it prints mission start, and when it touches the second one, it stops and says mission complete, mission end. So that's good because it's firing, because mission complete is being fired, but you notice that nothing happens in mission complete except the mission end event, and it's triggering both of those, which is great. So that's the basic state working. Now the idea is later, because this is like the basic skeleton of like how this system should work. I want to make implementation a bit more seamless because doing it this way is kind of messy, of like telling it in the scene, whatever. Like I feel like I want to make something more drag and drop intuitive sort of deal. But what I'm thinking is while the, let me just like clean these up. Because what this will lead to in the future, which might take a while, but what you want to get it to is a state where when you activate one of those emissions, it might not look as coarse as it does now, obviously, because at the moment we've just got these invisible barriers. But you'd use your imagination a bit, and let me just, okay. So you use your imagination a bit, and you picture that when a mission starts, maybe it's activated in a more eloquent way that looks more diegetic instead of just running through a capsule. But let's say the mission does start. Imagine we're doing a collectathon, and that all of the collectathons will spawn in when we touch this, and the stopwatch and UI elements will spawn. And then when you end the mission, or when we have a certain set of conditions that are reached, it'll end the mission and have a result screen, and then it just goes back to the free roam like this. That's the kind of place we want to get this to. But it's far from it still, but at least we got a start. We have the very, very basics of entering the mission state and exiting the mission state working, even if it's very coarse. So we can start a mission, and technically the mission state is active now, and now when I touch that, it's inactive. But nothing is obviously just telling us that yet. But in time, you'll see. So that's kind of like the start of what might be something bigger here. So I'm gonna make sure that's all saved. And I think, yeah, that's kind of like all I was really, I don't know, that's kind of like what I was planning on getting done today. So I'll save all that now, and yeah, so I think we still got a way to go with all of the rest, but getting there. So I think that'll be the stream for today, guys. Thanks so much for coming along. If you enjoyed what you're seeing, make sure to follow the game dev journey on my YouTube channel and all that. Follow me on Twitch for updates when I go live. What else? That's kind of it. That's my outro. But yeah, thanks guys for coming along. I will hopefully catch you guys next week doing this more work on this system. I'm still working on the dublog as well, so I might be a bit slow on development, but you know, I got a lot of jobs to do, so that'll get done in due time. Thanks for coming. Stay safe, stay radical, and stay Devon, my guys. I'll catch you guys next time.